A strike that didn't behave like previous attacks, so missiles cut across a twilight sky like silent punctuation. Alarms begin to thrum in a darkened operations room. Screens flare with tracks and timestamps. Voices whisper, then harden into commands. Official statements arrive, measured cautious, then contradictory. The footage looks familiar, but something about the pattern feels different. This was not the blunt return strike, the headlines called it. It landed with limited physical damage, yet set off a cascade of strategic questions in capitals from Washington to Jerusalem and in hidden war rooms across the region. The claim at the center of this film is simple and unsettling. A missile salvo exposed a systemic gap in regional detection and intercept networks, not merely a failed intercept, but vulnerability in integration and timing. What exactly was missed? How could sophisticated layered defenses be challenged? Who benefits from a blind spot that invites probing? The next minutes will follow that thread, from seconds in the sky to decisions in command centers, and show how a single operational gap can reshape deterrence and alliance posture. What happened? Who was involved? At dawn, multiple missile batteries launched within a narrow window, tracked by regional radars and commercial satellites. Impact reports showed limited physical damage, but several interceptors were committed. Targets included forward bases used by coalition forces and peripheral Israeli military sites. Public responses were predictable. Iran framed the action as retaliation. The United States condemned attacks on its forces. Israel reported damage assessments, privately alerts circulated among allied commands. Diplomatic calls moved quickly between capitals. Sensors and units implicated included coastal early warning radars, Aegis-equipped ships in adjacent waters, and land-based missile batteries whose engagement logs later showed delayed or fragmented queuing. The central question emerges plainly. Was this strike designed to probe an operational seam rather than simply exact vengeance? How Iran built a tool for probing. Iran's missile program began as a deterrent extension of asymmetric doctrine, evolving from short-range rockets to longer-range ballistic and cruise systems capable of hitting regional infrastructure. Over 2 decades, Tehran invested in range accuracy and salvo tactics, learning from proxy engagements in Lebanon, Syria, and Iraq. These conflicts taught Iranian planners how to calibrate violence to signal intent without triggering full-scale retaliation. Tehran has repeatedly used limited strikes to test thresholds in both Washington and Jerusalem, probing responses to gauge red lines and response latency. Notable patterns include salvo launches, timed to political events, and coordinated drone attacks that forced allies to reveal sensor coverage. In parallel, US and Israeli defenses developed layered architectures. Aegis ships, Arrow interceptors, Patriot batteries, and distributed radar networks aimed to create overlapping coverage. Yet these systems rely on fusion, rapid queuing, and political willingness to engage under restrictive rules of engagement. That combination can create seams, especially against saturation tactics or low altitude profiles. Political constraints on preemptive strikes further amplify the value of probing actions. To understand this strike's logic, remember Iran rarely fires without strategic purpose, and history shows what it hoped to learn. The blind spot revealed. The blind spot was not a single failed interceptor, but a failure in integration. A seam where sensors, shooters, and decision loops did not produce a coherent defended picture. Iran designed its salvo to exploit 3 technical mechanics. First, to fly trajectories that skirted high radar horizons, then to use salvo density to saturate intercept channels, and finally to create false tracks that fragmented command and control. By staggering launches within tight windows, Tehran forced sensors to hand off tracks across disparate networks, creating latency in sensor to shooter, queuing low altitude, and sea skimming profiles shortened warning times, while simultaneous launches drove interceptors into resource competition. The effect was operational paralysis, not annihilation. Iran's motivation was explicit to test sensor envelopes, expose rules of engagement, and signal credible reach without crossing thresholds that invite massive retaliation. Allied constraints magnified the opportunity dispersed assets, created coverage gaps, political limits, slow decision cycles, and multinational data sharing introduced latency. Intelligence consequences, our severe allies must now assume improved Iranian ISR better, salvo coordination, and higher confidence in accuracy. This vulnerability converts tactical options into strategic leverage for Tehran and forces a rethink of regional deterrence. The exposed seam forces immediate military adjustments, upgraded sensors, denser radar coverage, and faster data fusion become urgent priorities. Forces may disperse and harden bases, and engagement rules will be reviewed to reduce decision latency. Politically, the event strains US-Israel coordination. Washington faces credibility pressure, domestic debates over risk tolerance will intensify, and Gulf partners grow anxious about relying on external guarantees. Economically, markets react to uncertainty. Oil and shipping insurance spike short term, while defense budgets and procurement priorities shift long-term. Defense firms and intelligence agencies gain momentum to expand capabilities, but that also militarizes regional competition, and winners include Iran, which gains coercive credibility and actors selling countermeasures. And losers are smaller states that face increased insecurity and commercial actors exposed to transit disruption. These ripples create a new strategic landscape and force policymakers to confront choices about escalation, containment, and alliances. Scenario A, rapid adaptation. Allies accelerate sensor upgrades, improve data fusion, and disperse forces. Triggers include clear technical confirmation of the blind spot. Responses, expedited procurement, US guidance packages, and quieter diplomatic reassurance. Indicators, procurement orders, interoperability exercises, increased intelligence sharing. Scenario B, measured retaliation and recalibration, and limited punitive strikes followed by tacit understandings. Triggers, domestic pressure for response. Responses, calibrated Israeli strikes, US diplomatic containment indicators, targeted operations, diplomatic back channels, reduced overt escalation. Scenario C, escalatory cycle. Reciprocal probes lead to wider exchanges. Triggers, miscalculation or civilian casualties. Responses, broader strikes, proxy. Activation indicators, sustained salvo patterns, mobilization. Scenario D, enduring stalemate, low-level coercion becomes routine. Triggers, political stalemate. Responses, defensive normalization. Indicators, recurring probes, arms, sales uptick. Watch 3 signals, sensor upgrades, legal authorizations, and proxy activity. The strike did more than puncture infrastructure. It exposed a predictable, fixable blind spot that demands doctrinal adaptation. For the United States, the implication is faster integration of multinational sensors and clearer authorities for rapid response. For Israel, the lesson is dispersal, hardened basing, and redundancy in missile defense. For Iran, the payoff is increased. Coercive credibility, but also a higher bar for restraint. For Gulf partners, the choice is whether to diversify security arrangements or deepen costly reliance on external guarantees. The strategic takeaway is simple. Adaptation is necessary and delay risks, normalizing probes that escalate by accident. The next probe may not stop at revealing a weakness, and that is the real danger.